Hi, welcome to Rolan Underground, where we talk about what's happening in the world above while in my grandparents' basement. Who opened this door? Still gotta be respectful. Today's episode is about kind of a serious, it's a topic, and I think it's something we need to address. I was on YouTube and I saw there was a new trailer for Stranger Things. I love that show. I clicked on it, I saw an ad for a movie called 8-Bit Christmas, which is about Neil Patrick Harris talking about his childhood in the 80s. And it just got me thinking about how there's so much 80s content and just bringing up all these old things, and how Chris Pratt somehow got casted as both Garfield and Mario. You know, good for him, he's actually doing really well right now, but weird for him to get casted as those characters. I find that weird. But it got me thinking about how nostalgia has such an iron grip on media right now, and I was like, let's talk about it, because it's my show and I'm going to talk about what I want to talk about. You know what, actually, let me tell you a story. Before this office was how it is, it was a mess. It was full of junk and garbage that nobody touched for years. So I got sick and tired of looking at it. So I cleared it out. I put stuff in garbage bags. I saw some yearbooks. I brought the garbage bags and the yearbooks upstairs. I put the yearbooks on the table and tried to go out with the garbage bags, and my grandmother stopped me. And she said, what do you have in there? And then proceeded to go through the garbage bags. Like, go through them. And she was like, what? You're throwing away this pillow? This is my favorite pillow. Clearly, since you haven't used it in over 3 years. I somehow got rid of most of the garbage, and I called my uncle, that was his yearbooks, through all of school, and I said, hey man, I have your yearbooks, you know, do you want me to drop them off? And he was like, just throw them away. What? He was like, throw them away. Why would I need to look through those? I lived through it. I don't need, just throw it away. I was like, don't you think your wife or your kids would want to see them? He was like, no, they don't need to see that. Throw them away. So I feel like that perfectly explains how there are some people that drown themselves with nostalgia and try to keep on to these things, these feelings, whatever. And there's those that completely reject nostalgia and almost refuse to look back. Now, there's some pros and cons of each side, so it's hard to say that nostalgia is evil, because it isn't, but it's not good, in my personal opinion. I'm not one to be, well, I am very nostalgic, and I try to suppress that as much as I can, but you know, there's a rule in my friend group that if it's just us, we're not allowed to talk about certain stories, because I've heard them talk about it so much. I've heard their different interpretations, you know, like it's just little details, but overall it's the same thing, and I can't do it, and I get very upset because I find it's not healthy. That's my main problem. First of all, nostalgia comes from around 1700s, you know, whatever, when soldiers would get classified as, you know, there's a disease, you know, an illness really, but a disease where they had this burning need to go to their home, to a place, and now defined as a over-romanticized desire to go to a certain time. Now, this modern definition is not so modern. I mean, if you think about it, this is a feeling that is relevant in all of history. You know, everybody now wants to live in the 80s, and then people in the 80s wanted to live in the 50s, and the people in the 50s wanted to live in the 20s, and then so on and so forth, to even when the Romans wanted to live, you know, with the ancient Egyptians, and based a lot of their philosophy, and not a lot, but their philosophy in that. And everybody knows, you know, Roman this and that, and it's all connected. Even in politics, you know, the whole MAGA thing, Make America Great Again, is a reference to, you know, like the 80s during Reagan time. But here's the thing, that phrase, let's make America great again, is from the 80s. It's from Reagan, talking about the 50s. But everybody's felt this way. There is some good part, because you don't want to forget history, because those who forget history are doomed to repeat it. But you are doomed to falsely live in it if you keep trying to live in these memories. You keep trying to listen to the same music you did when you were a kid, or watch the movies, or play this video game. No matter what you do, it's not gonna replicate it. I trust me. I've tried. I'm 21 now, and I still think about like stuff in high school. And I'd be like, oh my gosh, that would be so fun to do this again, or oh my gosh, you remember that time? And that's okay every once in a while, but I know people that will stay in those memories forever. Just live in those things and just distort these good memories into something that it wasn't. Like, high school was shitty. High school was shitty for everybody. That everybody has this nostalgia kind of like, oh my gosh, wouldn't it be so fun if we went back, I feel that way about college too, there was some really great moments in college, but college was shitty. I had a lot of deadlines, I had a lot of stress, and when I wasn't doing that, I was by myself a lot. I just didn't, you see, when this is becoming a lot depressing than I want it to, but I bring this up to the people's attention because I don't think it's brought up enough. First of all, I know why there is so much content from the 80s right now. It makes perfect sense. The average producer, director really is around 51, 50 through 52, that number. They're around that age. So if you do some math from 2021 minus 40 years, and that was their childhood. That was their teenage years. That was this and that for them. Those were good times. Those were times they were trying to relive. A lot of these stories could be told in modern time, and you could be said like, hey, the things were same back then, but it's no matter what you do, you can only interpret the past, is really what I'm trying to get at. There's no way in hell you're gonna replicate it. I'm sorry. When you watch this movie that you loved as a kid, you're gonna see some flaws. You're gonna say, hey, I've seen this story 1,000 times before. I don't know if this was anything that groundbreaking that I remember. Maybe it was, but you're not gonna get that same feeling. And it's shitty, but it's just kind of something that you have to accept. I completely understand in 20 years, I'm gonna see tons of movies that are based when I was a kid, or when I was a teenager. I've come to terms with that. I just find it a problem because there's this quote: the more you fetishize the past, the more you're removed from reality. Because this nostalgia feeling is, it's an illness, but it's an incurable thing. The only somewhat curable thing you can do is do escapism. I'm a big daydreamer. I love daydreaming, but you can't live in those daydreams. I say this because I've seen so many people just almost ruin their lives because they just refuse to move on. This isn't that funny of an episode. The more I talk about this, the more I'm like, this isn't funny. I mean, I've said it for years, I understand that there's one story told once just in different perspective or different this and that, but you gotta create more original stuff. You gotta move on. You can't do these reboots and sequels. You see tons of these. There's tons. I understand from a marketing standpoint, like, this is our demographic. We have to go. We have to shoot. But you will get so much more credit and praise and respect if you go out of your way and try to create something original. I've said it. I'm pretty sure I've said it on the show. God, this episode isn't funny, but what I'm saying is you can't change the past. You just gotta move on with your life, and that's that. Sure, you can be nostalgic every once in a while, but don't let it consume you. Don't let it run your life. And that was this week's episode. Tell us your favorite sequel in the comments.